Hello and welcome to the Parsha class, Parshat Vayel, Parshat, not yet, Parshat Lech Lecha 5786, with the commentary of the Taam Dagan, as we've been doing, and we're now into Lech Lecha. We're introduced to we're introduced to Avram, and we are. And our first Jewish forefather, and his story, quite a bit to say with regard to his adventures, but especially, believe it or not, a lot of it having to do with food. So, but before we begin, if you don't mind, we've had this idea that I'd like to sort of um, clarify over the course of my career, but even in this class, that there's a real big misnomer that needs to be corrected, and the that would be in regard to vegetables. Now, all the way in the beginning of creation, Hashem gave us vegetables to eat, herbage, as we called it in the Parsha class 2 weeks ago, and all of it is kosher. There's no such thing as a non-kosher vegetable. Yes, some needs to be given for mas or truma, or can't be eaten because of some other reason. Maybe it's the first fruits, etc. But there's no such thing as a vegetable that's not kosher. There are definitely insects that can infest certain kinds of vegetables, make it very hard to wash a vegetable, but every vegetable is washable. It just takes more time. And perhaps in mass quantities of these vegetables might not be a trustworthy, careful enough of a washing. But if you want to eat a particular fruit or vegetable, there is a way to do it always, and to get all of the nutrients that you need from that fruit or vegetable. Classic example of a fruit people say, a berry, really to be exact, that people say you can't eat is raspberry. But raspberry is often infested and is very hard to wash. But if you are able to, if you basically turn it into pulp by washing it with a strong stream of water that breaks up all of the bulbs where the insects like to hide, and then what you have left is the inside of the raspberry. So that could be edible. An individual would be able to wash that for you, or you'd be able to wash it for yourself, even better. There's no such thing as a vegetable that's not kosher. I think another example is asparagus. There is a way to eat asparagus. It's not easy for it to be koshered in a, say, restaurant situation or catering situation, but it's doable given the time and the care that's needed, and preferably for the mashgiach to be well compensated for that time and care, obviously. But the that's yeah, the commonly considered what they call the well-paid mashgiach. But truth be told, there is a way to do it, and I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to show you a I'd like to show you a video of how that would be done. Let's see if this works. Well, I can't hear it. Hate when that happens. Let me see. Uh, 1 second. Stop. Okay, stop, 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 stop. Let's see if I can't hear it. Whew. Are we even online? Interesting. I don't know what's happening here. Um, one moment. Let's try that. Hi. So I already cut off the tops and bottoms, and all we have left is the stick. But the stick also has on it these leaves. So these leaves also need to be peeled off. You take a knife, peel them off. It is very tedious work, but it's rather easy. Just spin this around, make sure you get all the leaves, and then there's nowhere for the bugs to hide. Then you have a nice kosher asparagus, which is the old Greek name of the vegetable, because that's what everybody knows. Okay. Yeah, so there we have me preparing a piece of asparagus. Even that's doable. You just have to cut off the ends, the top end and the bottom. And the bottom is just really for it's just really aesthetic and because it's usually brown and gross anyway. But the tops with all the bulbs, with all the little florets where the bugs like to hide. So that needs to be cut off. It's almost impossible to wash that out well. But all of the same nutrients that are in those you can find in the stem itself. Probably the stem probably has more nutrients, and it has the same taste. And you're not missing out on anything. Now the leaves, that's the part a lot of people don't know about. But there's leaves all along the stem, and as I just demonstrated, it's pretty easy to slice those off. All right. So with that, I hope I clarified some things. It's important to know that indeed Hashem gave us this world for us to enjoy and to eat the good things that are healthy for us, that are important. It's really a shame that we live in a time when people are supposedly more concerned with kashrut than they are with health. There's not supposed to be any any conflict there. What's healthy should be kosher. And if you find yourself eating a lot of Pashket's candy because there's a hechsher on it, but not eating asparagus because you don't know how to wash it, I think we know what needs to be done. You need to find out how to wash it so that it's you consume more of the stuff you need in this world, the healthy vegetables and fruit of this world rather than the garbage uh, produced for our sugar content. Okay, enough about that. Let's get some more important lessons in food from the Parsha. We'll go straight to Taam, Dagan, and Parsha Lech Lecha. Beautiful. Parsha Lech Lecha, we'll start with chapter 12, verse 13. So chapter 12, verse 13, and you find famous incident of Avram after he is told to go to the land of Israel. There's a famine, which means there's a lack of food. So there you have food related. And he tells his wife, Sarai, that he recognizes that she's beautiful. And and he asks her to say that she is his sister when they go into Egypt, because the Egyptian people are at this point certainly immoral people who would very likely kill him in order to marry her if she is his wife, if they know that she is his wife. And so he says to Imri na achoti at, please say that you are my sister, L'main yitav li ba'avorech, so that it will be good for me for your sake, right? V'haita nafshi biglalech, and then that will save my life. And here he uses a different word for life, right? Here it's not just good for me; it's good for my soul. Nafshi biglalech, for your sake, because of you. So the commentary here, it says Avram's asking Sarai to pretend to be his sister in front of the Egyptians would help them survive the famine they were experiencing, because the Egyptians would support them for her sake. So So this is the Or HaChaim is saying, because of Sarai, because she is this amazing, beautiful woman, etc. So Avram recognizes that the Egyptians might support them, might let them get through this famine because of her. If as long as she is, as long as she is indeed, um, uh, as long as she is quote unquote available, right? As long as she's not somebody else's wife. And in fulfillment of the verse, the righteous person eats to satisfy his soul. Huh. Right, one second. So this is totally miswritten. Um, give me one quick moment. I think I deleted something here. So Avram here uses the word soul. Right? So it's not about being successful and rich and big shot. That's not what Avram's trying to do in being quote unquote successful here. He is he's trying to survive a famine, and survival is the reason to eat. Not just a reason to eat. That is the reason. We want to eat in order to be righteous, in order to be good people, in order to fulfill our destiny in this world. And that's the pasuk there in Mishlei. The righteous person eats to satisfy his soul. That's why Avram here uses the word of all things that my soul, v'haita nafshi bigalech. So my soul will be able to survive for because of this action that you're doing. And again, what he wants to do is get food, not to be rich and powerful or anything else. The food is the main thing. And again, food is the focus of our commentary here. All right. Later on, Lot, who has quite a bit of cattle of his own. Lot is Avram's nephew, who's been traveling along with them. I was going to say for better or for worse, seemingly for worse, the way most of the commentaries explain, Hashem didn't speak to Avram until Lot left. So it seems like he was holding up the works here, and very clearly Avram was told in the beginning of the parsha to leave his family, and yet Lot sort of like hung around, uh, sort of maybe somewhat against Avram's will, it seems, and Avram was always looking for a reason to get rid of this very seemingly selfish person, and we see that when push came to shove, and Avram really needed to get rid of Lot, Lot looked around for a place to move. V'yisa Lot et einav, chapter 13, verse 10. Lot lifted up his eyes. V'yar et hakikar hayarden. He saw the whole plains of the Jordan of the Yarden. Ki kula mashke lifnei shachet Hashem. It was very well watered, like and this is before Hashem destroyed at Sodom ve'et Amorah. Kigan Hashem ke'eretz Mitzrayim. It was like the garden of Hashem, like the land of Egypt. Boachat Tzoar, like as you're on the way to Tzoar. So Lot's lifting his eyes is an indication of his greed. As mentioned before, lacking self-control. We talked about this whole issue of self-control and the marshmallow test. We spoke about this in Bereshit. Lacking self-control can lead to all sorts of evils. In Lot's case, it even led to incest. Right? Eventually, as we see next week, next week's parsha, Lot sleeps with his daughters. So that says, I think that's the call of the Torah. I think Rav Munk points out, yeah, that this very thing is what eventually leads to his incest. That he doesn't have the self-control that people need to work on. Eating kosher, as we know, is one step in gaining self-control. An apocryphal story is told of a Jewish mother once seeing a clearly Gentile child whining to his mother to buy some candy at the grocery store. The mother responds with, "It is not kosher." The child puts down the candy, and the Jewish mother asks the Gentile mother, "Do you keep kosher?" And the lady says, "No, but I see that you Jewish families respond that something is that when you sorry, when you Jewish families respond that something is not kosher, your children put away the food without a fight. So I taught my children similarly." This yeah, sorry, just fixing up the story a bit, make it a little more dramatic. Uh, so this apparently happened. This story is told in the name of Mordechai Kamenetsky, but the story apparently happened, and I've seen similar stories like this as well. People who are not Jewish, or maybe perhaps Jewish and not observant, utilizing certain parts of Judaism for the sake of easier child rearing. So, so here we have this idea that it's not kosher. Ah, put it down. It's not going to be good for you. So there's one solution. So again, that's the self-control that the Jewish children are raised with, in order to help them get to that point of self-control where other kind of chataim and other kinds of sins are not even an issue. So that's not the only reason for kashrut. That's not what I'm saying here. It's one step in the attainment of that ideal of self-control that is a very important part of Judaism. It's worth reflecting. I know it's it's not Yom Kippur time, but really we're supposed to be in the mode for teshuvah all the time. But it's worth reflecting that what in our lives demonstrates our self-control or lack of self-control, and how can we sort of strengthen our ability to sort of maneuver through this world in a way that demonstrates that we are not slaves to our emotions and slaves to our desires. And that's at least one thing to work on. It happens to be a side point that perhaps I'm jumping the gun about this here, but it's worth mentioning. There's often the question you'll get in communities, especially less observant communities. You'll get the question of how do I know if somebody keeps kosher? Somebody invites me to their home, and they think they keep kosher. How do I know? Well, the classic answer is, they have to be shomer Shabbat. They have to keep, obviously they have to keep kosher inside the house, outside the house, etc. Obviously, they have to be shomer Shabbat. The wife needs to cover her hair. Whatever the answers you might get as proof positive that somebody is more or less trusted to be kosher. All of them have to do with self-control. All of them have to do with, I am not in charge. I am not the boss. Hashem is the boss, and I listen to him. And that's sort of that's what that's the very core. That's the root. Pardon the pun. That's the root of kashrut. Uh, kashrut. More than a pun, double pun. So that's really the point. Is that when it comes down to it, the whole core of Judaism relies on this idea that we're not in charge. We don't do just what we want to do. We do what Hashem tells us to do, and no more and no less. Actually, perhaps more. if that's what Hashem wants. All right, so a little bit later on, chapter 13, verse 13, this is this is where Lot moves, of all places, to Sodom. Sodom, as we see next week's Parsha, is going to be destroyed, but here Sodom is still around, and already says the verse, "The Anshe Sodom ra'im v'chatayim la'Hashem ma'od." The people of Sodom, the men of Sodom, were wicked and sinful. Like that's how I'm translating Ra'im v'Chataim. Very, very, very to Hashem. They're wicked and sinful to Hashem. Very much so. Ma'od. They're very. Right. So why are we having two different? What were they? Wicked or sinful? Or is this like a poetic device? Or we have different words for the same thing? Are these synonyms? Are they this? What's going on? So according to Rashi, no, these are not the same thing. The different adjectives Hashem uses in His Torah to describe the evils of Sodom refer to their physical sins. That's the Ra'im, they're wicked, they do bad things. We'll maybe get to that next week before they get destroyed, what exactly they were doing wrong. But the Chata'im means that they had a lack of generosity, that they were selfish. Yeah, the people of Sodom were just people who, or a lack of a better word, were not generous, and we'll see that there's many midrashim about this, about how they didn't allow guests, and if somebody had a guest, how they acted towards them, and that obviously we'll see that with Lot when he invites the two angels basically into his home. So their legendary selfishness is part of what would lead to their ultimate destruction later. Again, that ties in with what we just spoke about with self-control, but also the idea of being able to share what you have. You have food, so somebody's hungry, somebody needs a place, give it to them. That's part of that. It's not entirely yours. Just because it's in your pocket right now doesn't mean it's your money. It was you are a supervisor, perhaps you're taking care of it for the sake of Hashem, but it's Hashem's. Everything is Hashem's. The whole world is Hashem's, and that's how we need to go through life. Okay, next verse we're going to skip to the end of the war. What war? So there's a war of the 4 kings against the 5 kings, in which the whole setup of Lot and Sodom is all to demonstrate that Sodom fell in this war, and Lot was captured, and Avram had to go rescue him. Avram, who was not a fighter, not by any stretch of the imagination, at no point has the Torah yet called him anything to the effect of a warrior or man of arms or anything like that. So all of a sudden, Avram has to go fight for him, and he does, and he's very successful. And then the verse tells us that the verse tells us that he freed Lot, and he basically ended the war. And at that point, Malkitzedek Melech Shalem Hotzi Lechem v'Yayin v'Hu Chohen Lekel Elyon. So it's chapter 14, verse 18, tells us that somebody by the name of Malkitzedek, whom we have heard zero about, according to the written law anyway. According to our oral tradition, however, Malkitzedek is Shem, the son of Noach, that we have heard a little bit about in last week's Parsha. Again, not very much, truth be told. Without again midrashim in other parts of the oral law, we know almost nothing about Shem. But Malkitzedek, if he is Shem, he is also the king of this place called Shalem. Rabbis tell us that's Yerushalayim, and he brought out bread and wine, and he was a priest to the great God. So first of all, it's very important to know not really for purposes of our commentary, but just so for general Jewish knowledge. It's important to know that Avraham was not the first person to believe in one God. This might surprise you because that's what everybody thinks Avraham invented. Obviously not. Noach believed in one God. Noach's children, who survived the flood, knew that there was only one God. The whole idea of idolatry is the worship of these great powers that you might accidentally, let's use the word correctly here, they might accidentally misappropriate their powers. So you've got the sun, and it makes things hot, and it makes things warm, and it makes things bright, and it makes it seems very, very powerful. You might forget that sun has a master also, and that master is Hashem. And you might attribute certain things, certain movements, certain natural occurrences to the sun's own power, as if it has any of its own power. That being the case, people believed then in God. So what didn't they believe in? What was it that Abraham really introduced into the world if there was already a belief in one God? Well, first of all, the belief in one God was becoming unpopular. So Abraham, if nothing else, he kick-started it again. He gave it new life. Melchizedek doesn't seem to have been very successful, to say the least. Wasn't very good, outreach professional. So what did Abraham introduce, if anything at all? It's this idea that not only is God the great God who created the world and can make giant and controls the sun and can do great things with the flood and everything else. The other thing is that's important in our relationship with Hashem is just that. There can also be a relationship with Hashem. Hashem isn't just the great God who did everything and then put the world on its axis, gave it a spin like one of the Globetrotters with a basketball and went away. And let the earth do its thing. He's involved every day with every aspect of everything. He's not just the great God who's up there in the sky looking down on us. He is right here with us. He helped Shem survive the flood. We don't hear much of the story of what was going on in that year in the Teva, but Hashem was there, and so he brings out this bread and this wine to demonstrate to Avram that he's learning his lesson. He's learning the lesson that Avram has taught, that it's Hashem who has made Avram successful, even here, even now. Even this battle. So he brings out the bread and the wine. He was a priest of God the Most High. The bread and wine are the supreme foods. When bread has traditionally been considered, wheat bread, has been traditionally been considered the greater quality bread. So that's like, if you have a choice of which bread to make hamotzi on, halacha usually is that you should make it on like white bread as opposed to whole wheat. Unless you like whole wheat better, but that's a different story. But it might be different today. The Cheshukei Hamed brings up that because whole wheat is considered healthier nowadays, at least according to modern nutrition science. So perhaps you would make the hamotzi on that if you're going to have two separate breads. The whole wheat might be a better bread to make your hamotzi on. It's a question, but it's certainly wheat is better than for in terms of bracha than say spelt or some of the other grains that people use. Now, what I mean by this bread and wine are the supreme foods. They are of foods. They are the big ones, right? Bread is is the greater food of is if you have to make different brachot, for instance. You have in front of you a piece of bread, a piece of steak, and a potato. So even though you might like all three, you might even like steak more, the bread is the food that you will say the blessing on, which will actually even cover all the other foods. The same thing goes with wine. Wine is if you have all kinds of drinks in front of you, you have a beer, you have a wine, you have a soda, and which one should you make the blessing on? You should make the blessing first on the hagafen, on the wine, and in some cases it actually covers the other foods as well. I'm not going to go deep into halacha here. I'm not really prepared to right now, but that's part of the idea. They're the supreme foods, and that's what he brings out, and that's in this week's parsha. Good. Chapter 14, verse 24. The kings that he has rescued offer him anything he wants as a gift for his participation in this war that he has been successful in. And he says, no, biladai rak asher achlu anarim. I only want what my young people have eaten. The chelek hanashim, the portion of men at shahalku iti, that they obviously earned, whatever losses they took, they should be compensated for that. Aner eshkol mamre hem yikhu chelkam. So these people, these friends of his, Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre, they should all take their portion. Well, it seems like of all the things he's careful about, the men didn't just eat; they also probably trampled on some gardens. They might have broken through some doors and the shooting, whatever. Why is this all he cares about? So it says that Abraham is especially careful about food his people ate. And the reason is because there's no way to gain forgiveness for stolen food that has been eaten. So according to the Gemara in Chulin 89a, when it comes to forgiveness, we can forgive all kinds of slights to our character and all kinds of thievery. But the things that happen when food is taken, that cannot be easily forgiven. Okay, two more comments on this week's Parsha, chapter 15, verse 10. He took for himself all of these, divided them in the midst, and laid each half over against the other. He did not divide the birds. This is the covenant of the parts. We've spoken about this covenant in previous Parsha classes. Not all of this has to do with food in particular, but some of this does. Which animals did he use? He used kosher animals for this. So how did he know what was kosher? There was no Torah. He didn't like go into the parsha and see. He didn't come to our parsha class to learn about the rules of kashrut in the Torah. So how did he know? So perhaps this is different from Noach's less intuitive knowledge because of the concept mentioned in the Midrash, contrasting Noach's walking with Hashem with Avram's walking before Hashem. So the Midrash says, when it talks about Noach in last week's Parsha, that he walked with Hashem. Walking with is not the same as walking before. So Avraham had this sort of like jump start. Avraham knew stuff on his own, like intuitively. It's almost like, I'm not saying he didn't need Hashem. It's like Ki'ilu, he didn't need Hashem to tell him and point out things to him. The Midrash basically says such a thing, that it's like walking. You have two sons. You have the older son and the younger son. The younger son needs to be with you. You need to like show him the way. You need to protect him. You need to hold his hand when you cross the street, right? The older son can go a little bit ahead. So the older son here is Avram. Avram walked before Hashem. In other words, Noach learned Torah but did not internalize it to the same degree as Avraham. That's a little chiddush of my own. If you don't like it, you don't have to pay too much attention to it. If it seems correct to you, then Baruch Hashem, it came from my learning. Okay. All the way at the end of the Parsha, Avram's name is changed to Avraham. Avraham gets a Brit Milah. And believe it or not, Brit Milah has something to do with kashrut as well. Interesting thing. So it says, "Zod briti asher tishmeru." This is the covenant that you should keep. Beini u'veinechem, between me and you. Vein zaracha, between me and your descendants. Acharecha, afterwards. Himol lachem kol basar. Every male should have a milah, should have a brit milah, should circumcise, should cut the orla, the foreskin from the male part of the body. This doesn't seem to have anything to do with kashrut at this point, correct? Just pointing that out. But there happens to be a halacha in Yoredeya when it's talking about salting, right? Melicha, one of the first things that rabbinic candidates learn about. Again, blood is not a kosher thing to eat. So we have to perform melicha, where you salt an animal to get the blood out of it. And there is an opinion that you should cut the membrane of an animal's heart during the salting for eating purposes. So you can't just salt the heart. You need to also cut it crisscross. You have to cut it across opposite ways. According to the Ramah, this is a stringency. And the Shach, unusually, I've never seen him do this anywhere else. I've not learned the entire Shulchan Aruch with the Shach, but I've never seen him do this. He quotes the Rekanti commentary on our verse in the Torah, in the Pasuk. The Parsha says what we said, that there's a brit between the Jewish people and Hashem to cut off the orla. So it says, why do we have this stringency to cut the membrane of the heart when we're salting it? For the same reason. It's because the membrane of the heart, like that membrane of the human body, is something that can give over tuma. And by cutting it, we're allowing that tuma to be released and no longer be a problem for the person. So it's a Kabbalistic idea, granted, and I don't understand it 100%. But that's he's quoting the Racanti, who's 1600s Italian Kabbalist, right? Not usually quoted in Shulchan Aruch. He has his own book on halacha. No, don't get me wrong. He's huge Talmud Chacham. Doesn't need my haskama. But the fact is that the Shach, very, an important commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, on what's kosher to eat, uses this verse as a connection between tuma and holiness. So the holiness that we would want in our lives, it can be gained from different things. Sometimes it requires a cut to allow certain powers of impurity to leave us in order for us to have a more beautiful, a more spiritual, a more pure life. And that's the idea here, as we see in Brit Milah and in the halacha that is quoted in terms of the stringency of cutting the membrane of the heart while it is being salted for purposes of eating. All right. Thank you for joining me in our exploration here of Parsha Lecha and the halachot and hashkafot of food. I hope it helps you live a more spiritual and more healthy life. And that's the whole goal, isn't it? Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week.